It's HBR, All Things Considered, and I'm Dave Lawrence. During all the election news coverage, the passing of jazz trumpet icon Roy Hargrove did not get a lot of exposure. According to the Dallas Observer, the Texas native passed away at 49 this past Friday due to cardiac arrest brought on by complications from kidney disease. The newspaper said he reportedly had been on dialysis for 13 years. In early 2016, Roy Hargrove was our guest when he played the Blue Note Hawaii, and we remember him now by flashing back to that conversation, which began with Roy explaining how his love of music was nurtured early on in life, thanks to his father.
My dad collected a lot of records. He had a good ear for knowing what was going to be like the next big thing, so to speak. So people would used to come to our house to see what we had in his collection, so they would know what to go buy. We had a place in Dallas called the Sound Warehouse, and every weekend he'd go get like a couple of records, and people would come over our house to see what we had. Ever since I was probably old enough to speak, I was kind of into music, even by osmosis. Back then it was more like the Temptations, the Four Tops, Parliament, Funkadelic, George Clinton, and a lot of the stuff in the 70s. And I guess around the time I was about 9 years old, I joined the school band. My band director at the time had a very special thing. He could teach us how to improvise. And we're in Texas, so it's kind of like based on the blues, so you learn a few little blues things. It's a little bit different because it kind of gives us an understanding of emotional quality in playing music, Even before we learn all the technical things that go with it, you get the emotional thing, the spiritual thing. Even as a young person, some people can understand. You can understand that. But anyway, I went on to high school, which is an art school, and then I went to Berkeley in Boston. I guess around my end of my high school tenure, I met this guy Larry Clothier here, and he took me on a tour to Europe, and I began to go to these jazz festivals that would feature a lot of my heroes, people that I knew, listened to on record. My favorite musicians, people like Dizzy Gillespie and Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw, and even some other lesser-known musicians, but with great talent that taught me a lot. People like Ronnie Matthews and Larry Willis and Jimmy Cobb, Walter Booker. There's so many of them, that I learned from by just them being examples. I just watched them on the bandstand, and they really taught you how to be like a grown-up, musically speaking.
You had some formative cats, though, who you got to interact with both. There's a middle school encounter and a high school encounter that I read about, the David Fathead Newman thing, and then later on Winton. And when you look back at the road that you've been on, do you say to yourself, well, those were two really crucial experiences?
Oh, definitely. I think it's really important for, a young musician that's starting out to get the experience of being around the elders, because it just shows you a great example on how to do it right.
Because I look at that as like school and a music education really having a critical role in your life.
Yeah, definitely. Education is very important. And there's different kinds of education. You got the School of Hard Knocks, and then you got the actual school where you're in a building and sitting there taking the notes or whatever. But there's nothing like the kind of education you get from actually being there and seeing it live. I used to frequent this little bar. It was like a club. Actually, it was a place where most musicians went to after they finished their gig. It was like a piano bar called Bradley's. I used to go there all the time and hear some of the greatest musicians I ever heard. Just being there, just really gave me a savvy and an understanding of the fabric that goes in learning how to play.
I know Dizzy was another one that I read was early on, and that high school experience helped get you there.
Dizzy's great, man. He was the greatest. He would always help the young guys. He was just so giving and had such a great personality and a wonderful sense of humor, and he really knew how to make you relax in situations where you might be nervous.
Which is an important part, and part of that, you talked about education. You spent just a year at Berkeley. I actually went to Emerson, so I was just around the block from there. So I was thinking, why just 1 year? Did you get there and you thought, well, I don't really need to keep doing this?
I was there after about a year and a half. Long story short, February came around and it was really, really cold out there.
And that chased you away.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things. But I know New York was calling. I mean, I was spending more time in New York than anything, so I thought it made more sense to change and go to school there instead.
You read about commissioned to do music, Lincoln Center Jazz. Explain, give us an idea. How do you get to have that privilege?
Well, I did. They called me and asked me to do it, and I did it. I was really excited about doing something like that, especially sharing the bill with Terrence Blanchard, one of the great composers of our time, you know. I sat down and put it together. It was really a lot of fun. I thought people had forgotten about that, man.
How long does it take to do something like that?
For me, it was, I don't know, it took a couple of days. It doesn't take me long to write. If I can get some paper somewhere, I can write pretty fast. Something like that, you know, it was just a matter of me putting together the right musicians for it. And at that time, I think we had was Jesse Davis and Ron Blake and Greg Hutchinson, Mark Carey, Rodney Whitaker. Oh, my homeboy, Andre Hayward on trombone. That was a lot of fun, actually. I remember that. I still have the flyer to that. In a nice frame.
When you talk about names and cats that you've gotten to work with, Chucho Valdez, it's a whole different culture, whole different vibe with Cuba. So what led to that? And any stories you got of working with the legendary Irakere master, Chucho Valdez?
Man, we went to Cuba, the first time was in 1995, and by invitation of Chucho, he brought us down there and really rolled out the red carpet for us, man. It was really very special, and I heard some incredible musicians there. Not only just musicians, I mean, I just got to see some really great art in all different areas. These people that I got a chance to meet were multifaceted in their expressions, you know. I met this one guy, he was a trumpet player, and he also played harp, violin or something like that. And then there was another guy who was a visual artist, and he could dance. And I mean, there was just all kinds of things going on the level of virtuoso. A lot of these musicians were incredible that I heard there. Anyway, Chucho invited us there for the jazz festival. At that time, I think it was just my group and Steve Coleman were the only two American groups at that particular festival. We went there, and man, it was just astounding. Really blew me away. So then we made this recording. First, we went to a place called Casa de la Musica in Havana, and then we went to Italy, the Teatro Mancinelli, and made the recording with a group that featured like the front line of myself, Gary Bartz, Frank Lacy, and David Sanchez. The rhythm section was kind of a mixture of guys from Cuba and from New York. Chucho was there, of course, and the great Changuito, Miguel Angar Diaz, Horacio Negro Hernandez. Oh, John Hicks was also there, and Idris Muhammad. And Russell Malone was also there. So it was quite a band.
You got good memory.
Yeah. We set up in the theater and recorded basically kind of the live thing. Some of it was taken from some of the live shows. That's how that went down. And people were coming from all over the world to see this band when I went on the road with it. It really attracted a very broad audience. Especially with all those drummers in there, you know, like Changuito, he's like a master, you know, everybody studied with him. And then this guy, Angar, we lost him a little while back, but Angar was just like an octopus. He had like 5 congas. And Chucho, you know what that is, you know. Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of fun, man. We went on the road. Yeah, it gave me a lot of education on like rhythm. You know, and how to understand how to play over different types of rhythm, you know, especially being in Havana, hanging out with those drummers, you know, they showed me all the different components that go into the, you know, the guanguancó and the son and the different clave.
The ingredients.
Yeah, so that really helped me a lot as far as learning how to play rhythm.
That was a great project, and I really do appreciate you shedding a little light on that. It's a great treat for Honolulu and for Hawaii Public Radio to get to talk to you.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks a lot.
The late Roy Hargrove, who passed away last Friday at 49 years old. We remembered him today with some of an interview from 2016 when he was our guest here on All Things Considered. You can see the complete interview video at our website, hawaiipublicradio.org.